Today on the podcast, I want to bring you some massive breaking news, and that is Anthropic, of course, one of the largest AI companies out there after OpenAI. They've just recently, everyone knows, kind of gotten this $4 billion commitment from Amazon and AWS. Apparently, they are looking to raise another $2 billion as there's this huge AI surge where everyone in Silicon Valley, it would seem, is looking to get their hands on a piece of AI. So today on the podcast, we're going to be covering why right on the back of a $4 billion raise, they're going for another $2 billion raise, what their plans are, and what they've said in the past about the total amount that they're trying to raise and what they're doing with it. So let's dive into it. Welcome to the world's #1 AI podcast, AI Chat. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. If you've been following the podcast for a while, you'll know that over the last 6 months, I've been working on a stealth AI startup. Of the hundreds of projects I've covered, this is the one that I believe has the greatest potential. So today I'm excited to announce AIBox. AIBox is a no-code AI app building platform paired with the App Store for AI that lets you monetize your AI tools. The platform lets you build apps by linking together AI models like ChatGPT, Midjourney, and 11 Labs. Eventually will integrate with software like Gmail, Trello, and Salesforce, so you can use AI to automate every function in your organization. To get notified when we launch and be one of the first to build on the platform, you can join the waitlist at aibox.ai. The link is in the show notes. We are currently raising a seed round of funding. If you're an investor that is focused on disruptive tech, I'd love to tell you more about the platform. You can reach out to me at jaden@aibox.ai. I'll leave that email in the show notes. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today. So the AI startup Anthropic is in the headlines once again. This isn't even, I think, a week after they've just secured their $4 billion commitment from AWS, which, to be fair, is not just like it wasn't really just a straight up $4 billion commitment. I think it was 1.6 or something like that, $1.6 billion that they'll give them up front. And then the rest is like AWS has the option of investing up to $4 billion. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think maybe the uncertainty around that is kind of what's pushing Anthropic to go and look for other funding. I think the potential deal they're working on right now kind of spotlights this like prevailing enthusiasm among tech leaders to kind of stake their claim on Silicon Valley's AI sector. This is obviously a hot sector, and Anthropic is one of the biggest players in this space. So a lot of people are just essentially trying to make safe bets by just betting on who's already raised the most money, who's kind of already the most far ahead, not taking some of the risky bets on earlier stage companies. Now, I think what's really interesting that we've all found out by analyzing the market recently is there's recently some charts that came out kind of showing who invested at what point in Instacart's shares. So the winners from Instacart, because of course it just went public, and so kind of after it goes public and you see where the final stocks fall and where everything ends, that's kind of like the official market valuation for Instacart. And then you can kind of look back at all of their different funding rounds and see who invested, how much they invested, and so how much everyone made. So pretty much what we found from Instacart is that early investors, of course, seed, Series A, Series B, these people were all winners. As the round started to go more and more forward, you got into what's called growth stage rounds, where essentially the company's already kind of grown. We see it has a product market fit. It's getting some mass adoption, and they're just raising money to help them exponentially grow faster. All of those rounds after the IPO price gave it its final valuation actually were down. So people like SoftBank, people like Tiger Global, some of these massive companies came in, invested a ton of money for growth rounds, and they actually lost money on this thing. So I'm interested to see, how that same strategy is going to be playing out with some of these AI deals like we see with Anthropic here, as they're just raising more and more, billions and billions more. If the people putting money in today, putting billions into Anthropic today, are going to have the same fate as kind of this whole Instacart growth round investors. So while the valuation for Anthropic hasn't been locked down as of now, I think insiders familiar with the matter on this current kind of round of funding that they're trying to do, apparently remained anonymous, which of course is always, you got to take it with a grain of salt when you got anonymous insiders. But they've hinted that the valuation could be around $30 billion, a number that initially was mentioned by some tech news platforms, specifically The Information, which they have, often The Information has inside scoops on all of these new AI companies. They've had a lot of, successful, accurate scoops on OpenAI, for example, and some other players in the space. So, still take it with a grain of salt when there's an anonymous source. But in any case, if Anthropic does manage to seal the deal on this funding round, I think it's going to underscore the huge momentum behind startups specializing in the creation of foundational models, right? Not just people building AI tools on top of them, but the actual foundational models themselves. I think these models, of course, known for their capability to pretty much suck in a ton of data, essentially what ChatGPT is doing, they're then, spit out and used for tons of different tools. People use them for, essentially integrate them into all of these different AI startups that we see today. So I think very cool. However, they do come with a very hefty price tag in terms of operations. So because of this, startups in this space, including Anthropic and of course OpenAI, are always, it seems, on the lookout for more, fuel to feed the giant money pile that is training these AI models. So I think their kind of quest for capital right now isn't just a startup story. I think big tech behemoths are also not kind of sitting by. Earlier this year, Google's parent company Alphabet put $450 million into Anthropic. Amazon's involvement in Anthropic doesn't stop at funding. They've also stepped up as the startup's main cloud computing supplier. And I think that's actually why Amazon and AWS gave Anthropic like the $4 billion deal or, $1.6 billion deal. Is because they wanted them to come onto AWS to do all their computing, so they kind of knew they'd get some of that money back. So really, they're kind of offering them chips. So not to be outdone, Microsoft has committed another, or I think earlier this year, Microsoft committed, of course, $10 billion to OpenAI. So really, a lot of these big players are backing these startups to very large sums of money. So I think the kind of unwavering interest from Anthropic's corporate allies in championing it is very evident. However, I would say that some sources suggest that sealing this new deal might hinge on the participation of major financial institutions. So particularly Wall Street or some of the dominant venture capital firms. And these kind of partners would definitely play a pivotal role in finalizing the company's valuation and kind of spearheading the round. However, a lot of these firms at the same time right now have been struggling to raise, fresh rounds of funding when we're talking about some of the big venture capital firms. So they tend to be a little bit slower right now. Honestly, I hear they are making plays, they are making investments, but when I'm hearing a lot of these like huge plays into this AI space, it's coming from like Microsoft, Google, Amazon. It's coming from big tech companies that are profitable, that are, or generating a lot of revenue that can put money into these things. So as a little background, established back in 2021 by a bunch of different OpenAI alumni, Anthropic has been growing really fast. And I think, it definitely is coming out with some good products. It has Claude, which I personally use because you can put like huge like chunks of text. You can like get it to print. You upload pretty much an entire PDF to Claude, like of a book, like a 100-page book, and ask it questions about it, and it'll be able to pull stuff out. So like that's very, very cool. I think it's not just about efficiency. It's also kind of crafted to have a human touch, is what they say. Really, it's like kind of like a super safe personal bot. That's like what Claude and Anthropic's like idea is. In any case, I think only time is going to tell if Anthropic's, impressive fundraising journey is going to realize its full potential. But I think it's clear that this AI gold rush right now is far from over. If they're going and looking for another $2 billion, this is a very hot area. A lot of people are going to be looking at it. So definitely a very interesting company to follow.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Thank you for listening to the AI Chat Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it if you rate me wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're looking for an innovative group of AI enthusiasts, make sure you check out our Discord channel and also our Facebook community. It's obviously a lot more interactive than a podcast where we can actually share software tools, prompts that we're using in everyday AI. I'll leave a link for those in the description below.